Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Magic the Gathering Arena. Today is Monday, March 2nd. We're starting at 6 p.m. Central Time, which I think that's pretty much where this is going to go. You have black and red, which doesn't coincide with anything, so re-roll this one, I guess. And so then we can play some red to overlap these, and then I'll have to play white and blue separately. I think I'll play a white deck. The month ended, so we got some rewards for that, and the rank draft Theros Beyond Death is here, and I think we kind of have to do that also. Not specifically because we need to get the bronze tier ranking 4 on rank draft, so much so as we just need to get more gems. If I was rolling in gems, then it wouldn't be a problem, and we will have to play regular ranked gameplay also. Also, it's not really like the Theros Beyond Death expansion has too many more cards to offer, and that's something I want to highlight before we jump into the ranked play. Whereas the War of the Spark cards here, of course, I don't have a lot of those. So we're going to open 3 packs here, and I'll be surprised if we get anything new at all. And I'll be kind of surprised if we do more than fill in maybe 1 pack's worth of cards as far as things that we don't already have. I don't think getting an uncommon wild card is an indication that you have all the uncommons in an expansion. If that was the case, that would be weird. And I guess it would also mean if by getting this rare wild card, I would I have all the rare also, which would mean I'm only missing mythic rares and possibly commons. Well, it doesn't even mean that, because you're going to get commons regardless. You do get duplicates of commons regardless. I just don't think you get duplicates of rares or mythic rares, and maybe uncommons. But yeah, definitely nothing new there. And of course the store is still doing its daily deals, trying to push you to spend gold and things. Let's see, so collection wise, what's new? We got a 4th of this one. We got a 1st of this one, which was probably not Thanos Beyond Death. Yeah, we can kind of just look at the symbol there to tell that, because this is a symbol for Theros Beyond Death. Thanos Beyond Death, that'd be funny. Well, actually, it would be right in line with DC. So we got, man, I can't even hover over them. It's hovering so much. 2 of those, 1 of those, 1 of those, which a 2nd one of these, a 3rd one of these. I guess we are kind of still in a position where we haven't collected everything in multiples of 4. This is an interesting land. Having more of those might be nice. If we were to filter here between collected and not collected, and only Theros Beyond Death, then we could see, I guess, let's go with not collected commons, uncommons, and rares. Yeah. Not collected commons and uncommons. I've collected everything. Rares and mythic rares, there's still a decent collection of cards here. It's 20 cards. 20 cards times 4 though would be 80 of the most expensive and most difficult to get cards. expensive, I guess, still is a factor to consider. But if we look at commons and uncommons, there are still also some that I don't have 4 of. And there really isn't a way to search that below 4 copies of something. This is where a gacha game, like, let's face it, Magic the Gathering Arena can be played a lot like a gacha game. It's a collectible card game, it's slightly different, but at least a gacha game like Destiny's Child would have a filter in it where if something is at max level, which in this case would mean max number of ones you could collect, 4 copies, you would have some kind of filter, and there might be something you type, but I don't know what it is. There's nothing in it to highlight that. The vast majority of these cards, though, I do have 4 of. So if, as we're doing today's draft, it will definitely be more around the idea of building a good draft for as terribly as I can do that, which is not going to be good anyways. When we start looking at the rares and mythic rares, there's still plenty of cards that I only have 1 of or 2 of, so I guess you can just dig deeper. This was the thing with Hearthstone also, is that 50 packs would get you probably the 1 copy or most of the cards. How does it work actually in Hearthstone? I've completely forgotten how Hearthstone even works. Do you just unlock 1 card and that's it? I don't know. You have to have 2. You can have 2 copies of cards in Hearthstone, so you have to unlock 2 copies of the card, I think. Man, I've completely forgotten. That kind of goes to show the importance of collectible card games as soon as you get off of playing them. Like, you put so much mental energy into it, and then as soon as you're done, you are just done. Okay. So, we're going to do a little bit of rare drafting, but the vast majority of it, we're going to try to go with skill. So, this card is by the idea a 3.5, but this card is a land, and I only have 2 copies of that, whereas this card I already have 4 copies of. And is there anything else to... They seem to kind of sort these by quality. They're trying to help you somewhat. So we take that, and that starts us with a green-white. I don't think there would be any reason why you wouldn't want to take a 4th commander card. This is 3.0, this is 3.0, and then everything else is lower than that. And so we'll take a 4th one of that commander card. This is a 1.3 that I have 3 copies of. This is a 2.5. This is a 3.0. Seems like we're probably going into a white deck. So yeah, we're kind of rare drafting still, but I think we're actually getting lucky too. We gotta take this one. Just a standard white deck might work here. I have 4 copies of this, so I should take this if I want to win, but only if there's nothing else to take. And this card I only have 1 copy of, whereas I have 4 copies of everything else, which is interesting. So we are starting to get to the point where it's more of a where I can't even rare draft because I have everything. And that certainly changes the feeling and the appearance of This is a better card than this. But this would work better for this deck. Yeah, I don't know how a real person playing actual Magic Draft would feel once you kind of have all the cards and you kind of know everything. I wouldn't be surprised. There's an interesting situation where I literally have 4 of everything. So, just Unknown Shores is the best option there. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's kind of a end of the season drop off in draft because people just don't want to spend the money to go play a draft, open up a bunch of draft packs of cards they already have plenty of copies of. And I guess that's why there are so many mythic rares and such. It's just to keep people gambling for that last card that they don't have. Again, like, I have all of those. And so I'm just going to pick based on rating. Yeah. This has turned into a scenario that's way different. This is the first card I don't have, and it's 3.5. And the only other card in this selection that I don't have is this. So we'll take that. And then I guess we can take this as we're trying to build a white deck, although these are also cards that I'm missing, so do I want to just build up my black deck? Because these are way higher rated cards. I'm going to take that one. And then this one is very high rated card that I only have 3 copies of, so that's a no-brainer. This is, I believe, is a 2.0, or I could take... I can't really take anything else. Yeah, the argument about potentially not opening 50 packs at the beginning of the expansion is getting more and more logical. Because sure, that would make sense if you're trying to play ranked and get really, really high. I can either take this one or this one. I'll take that. If you're trying to get high in ranked, traditional ranked play, not traditional, just ranked play. But if that is not your goal, or if you just know you're not that good of a Magic player, like me, like I'm not that good of a Magic player, I'm not going to be that good of a Magic player, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm barely an adequate Magic player by the time the Marvel card game is out. The only one I'm missing here is this. Like, it does, I have all of these, so then we just take that, take that. We're trying really hard to rare draft and failing miserably. That's a 1.0, that's a 1.3, that's a 1.5. And we're missing this or this. This one's rated higher, so we'll take that. And we have 4 of those. Yeah, the whole concept falls apart after your 3rd or 4th rank draft, rare draft. So do I want this? Or do I want this? Or I could take this. But that's way less, and it's, as far as its value. I'm gonna take this one, and then I probably am taking that one. I think the only other thing I'm missing is this. And then I'm missing one of these, and I'm missing one of these. Or I just take a white creature to have a better deck to actually play. Yep. Let's see. I have all of these cards except for this. I have all of these cards except for this one, and this one. Let's go ahead and take that one. I have all these cards except for that one. And I just have all of these cards. So what's the best rated one? It's this one. I have all these cards except for that one. I have all of these cards instead of that one. I have all of these cards except for that one. I have all of these cards except for that one. And this one in particular, I have been ignoring collecting Plummet for quite a long time. About at least the last 3 drafts. Because it's not good. It's not a good card. I'm just collecting everything. So I got kind of pushed into a red deck, I think, more than I was probably hoping for. Let's look at the balance to start with. We have 10 white cards. We can get rid of blue easily and green easily. And probably black. And we'll see if we can do a red-white deck. And see how that goes. How many was it as far as blue? Yeah. Get rid of the blues. There's must be a blue still around here. There. And then greens. Okay. And then we have a green-white card that enters tapped, so we don't really need that. Then we have a color card that probably doesn't matter. And then black-wise, we have 2 more black cards, so get rid of those. And that makes a dual color deck of red and white. And we have 4 cards now we can think about getting rid of. So we're actually looking at the cards at this point, which probably we shouldn't have done it that way. Like, next draft really can't be a rare draft. This was barely even the rare draft, because let's face it, we're mostly just wasting time. We were mostly just picking cards that would potentially help us. So, Rapid to Flames does 1 damage each to 3. Those creatures can't block this turn. That's not terrible. Gain target creature, untap it, and gain haste, and then scry 1. That's not terrible. When 2 more creatures your opponent controls attacks, can't block this combat. That's not terrible. Whenever you cast the first spell during your opponent's turn, put a 1/1 counter on it. Do I have any real spells? Target enchantment cards. I think we can get rid of that, because I don't think we have any enchantment cards of real importance. Whenever a spell targets this creature, I don't think we're gonna target that creature with spells. Let's see. 1 damage to target when we have spells. We may want to get rid of that because we may just not have any spells. Yeah, this is a spellless red deck for the most part. It's more of an equipment deck. Okay. So this one, yeah. There we go. We have a decent draft deck, it seems. Now watch me bone it up and lose 3 times in a row. Or win 7 victories. There is this question, and it's a question I probably will never be able to answer. If you win 7 victories and 0 losses, you just go 7-0, which odds are incredibly low that happens. Do we want card draw so early? Do I want a mulligan here? Let's mulligan once. Okay. I'm not gonna mulligan the second time. So there is this question: what happens if you go 7-0? Can you keep on playing and continue to win gyms past 7 victories? I guess the answer to that is no. Yeah, because they would just say 7+ victories, and then a certain number of victories after that point would have to discard a card if I want to do this. I mean, I can play this, and then it's an item. So that's an example of where the house always wins, because even if you do have the ability to win non-stop in a draft, you're limited. You don't have unlimited win potential for what you've invested. You can only win as much as 7 victories, and the reward for 7 victories, then you'd have to put another 5,000 gold in and redraft and potentially have a bad draft. So even if you got very, very lucky, attacks a fable, escapes dies. Ouch. This is just a death touch undoer. We don't have anything with death touch, but he's got a 7/3. Wow. I mean, I'm gonna get my butt handed to me completely. Like, there's no way to even defeat this guy. And it says whenever 2 or more creatures your opponent attacks, this one can't block. So gotta kind of do that or block that. And where did his guy go? wanted to exile that. Alright. And then if I sacrificed this, I could draw a card. Sorta. Kinda. Not really. Let's see, I can attack here. Let's see. This is an interesting card. I'm not sure you really need this. This is kind of the nice thing about drafts, but the fact that you're paying to play drafts versus Hearthstone's weekly tavern brawls, where they would sometimes give you decks and give you cards to play with, would be a better experience in that case. Frankly, if it was free, at least first entry was free on the tavern brawls, and they told you you're going to play with these cards, you're going to learn these strategies. We've thought this through. We really know what we're doing. Sure. We'll exile our graveyards before we lose. Yeah, I'm not sure I'd really have that card in my deck, but I definitely do see the benefit of it. There's been plenty of times, particularly with Theros Beyond Death, when they introduced this. So yeah. If I got 7-0, it would just save me time. I'd get 950 gems and 2 packs. And then you might as well just lose or retire or resign. Which I imagine the game probably just forces you to do that and doesn't waste its own time that way. Well, moving on, we've got a decent amount of video game news. I finished Batman Arkham Asylum, and I don't really have too much to say about it because my feelings on it are kind of the exact same feelings I had with it when I first played it. It's an overhyped game, even now. It's not really as good as I think people think it is. I don't want to. It set an interesting and good foundation, I suppose, for Arkham City, but then I feel like they probably wasted that momentum with Arkham Origins, and let's see, just gotta toss a land in hopes of getting more land, and that worked. The selling it as a Game of the Year product and then specifically excluding the PlayStation 3 content is unacceptable, and you can hack it to get the PlayStation 3 content, in which you play as the Joker and get new missions to do as the Joker in the combat challenges section of the game, which really suck and are totally not what I would want to play. So I didn't even do any of the combat challenge sections. I did one just as an example and failed miserably to even get halfway through the first tier of a 3-tier system as far as the score goes. Getting all the collectibles was pretty unsatisfactory. I would probably recommend number of lore creatures on the lore counters. Alright. So, yeah. There's just a lot of room for disappointment there. I guess it doesn't matter if I exile that, but I really shouldn't have played that. Obviously, that was a waste to play that thing. So if I was gonna have this card in my deck, I'm gonna have to think long and hard about when to play it, and might not really be worth it. Although making a card like this, it's kind of impossible to make it any cheaper at 1 colorless mana. Create a 1/1 token. Whenever you cast a spell that targets him, gets +1/+1 till the end of the turn. Right, so there's kind of nothing else to be done here. Unless we want to draw a card. Which we can do, I suppose. So yeah, there's really not a lot to say there. There was definitely a day of the week where I woke up at a reasonable time, let's say 10 or 11 in the morning, and decided just to roll back and go back to sleep. So yeah, that was my choice one day, and I'm still just kind of lying in bed trying to heal my back as much as possible. I watched Lost in Space Season 2 on Netflix. There's something very weird about Lost in Space Season 2, or Lost in Space in general. You get 10 episodes that are about an hour long, so you're effectively getting close to 20-30 minute episodes, but it would be a major mistake to split those hour-long episodes into 30-minute episodes. So it's short seasons, effectively, telling a decent story, but then it takes a year, I think, because of all the CGI, and it looks really good. There's nothing with that. It's just it takes about a year between each season, and so every year you're going to get 10 episodes that you're going to burn through, and they've got to kind of rush in the filming department because the kids who are a major focus of the story are going to get older and get growth spurts. And when you compare the difference between Lost in Space and what comes out on Netflix nowadays compared to 2018, so we're really saying something that was probably pitched maybe a year or two before 2018 versus things that seem to be greenlit and filmed and shot and put on Netflix within 6 months. Lost in Space, with some exceptions, I imagine the Witcher series, which I still haven't gotten around to watching, and the Netflix series kind of is trying to be actual TV, something that could actually be on cable television if for some reason Netflix ever failed. And there is that possibility. Like, there is this possibility that people just get tired of Netflix, and in that process Netflix like mishandles things so badly that they want they want to license their content back to cable television. I don't know why that would happen, but it is possible it could happen. Wow, you just conceded on that point. Interesting. I don't know why the bot would have conceded there, but I'll take it. Like, there's a lot of things that Netflix bankrolls just to have something, just to have more content. I look at Netflix's monthly releases, and yeah, 95% of everything that comes out every month doesn't interest me at all. a significant amount of it is stuff that I might fast forward through, but I wouldn't really pay attention to or play or watch. And ever increasingly, because they're losing the licensing deals, they're losing the rights to other shows that would be more interesting. So I feel like Netflix needs to start having more of a artistic eye, a little bit of curation on what they greenlight, not just saying yes to everything and then giving TV series 3 seasons and then abruptly ending them. Netflix was certainly in the position where they could have set themselves apart by making sure that anything they greenlit had at least a decent ending, but there's plenty of things that kind of just end on a cliffhanger after the 3rd season. The Santa Clarita Diet is like a great example of that, where if they knew they weren't going to renew, they should, I'm going to make the argument they should have renewed anyways a little bit, given them enough money to make a final episode or something to wrap things up. And often there is this there is a way that you could get the writers to say, here, we'll give you one more episode worth to wrap it up. Well, and you know that's true because often you'll see many years later, if it is a niche favorite, they'll come back with a reboot, or they'll come back with a movie, or a film movie. So somebody was willing to try and continue the story. Let's go ahead and pay that. He doesn't have anything in his graveyard. So, I mean, I guess I can play this, and then we can see if we can use it to draw a card. But yeah. I do have a slight concern about the quality of Netflix's content. For me particularly, and probably nobody else, also, if they'd started losing a lot of their Asian licenses, if they stopped getting the Korean shows, the weird Japanese and Asian, Taiwanese movies and such, I would be left with a lot less that interests me personally. They did get Looney Tunes, or some Looney Tunes, which is coming to Netflix. That's something, for sure. Alright. This one can't block, but I could. Can I really equip it? Nope. See, I have almost a trifecta here. No, I guess it's just 2 cards. One that would give flying and one that would make it immune to death touch. Which is interesting. So kind of obviously I haven't done anything. Haven't done anything else on the weekend, so let's start covering the video game news. I do feel like my back is starting to begin the process. Like it is in stage 1 of actually maybe feeling a little bit, but I wouldn't be surprised if I do something to irritate it otherwise. I suppose it is worth slightly mentioning that the gacha game I play on my phone, Destiny Child, has introduced a new Japanese public spa saunas out in the temples and the hills, not like public bathing houses inside cities. And they've added that as a new feature. You put your collectible waifus or husbandos in it, and they gain likability, a new statistic that seems to slightly increase one stat, and that's about it. It's just yet another thing to do. Although one of the parts of that would use all of your stamina every single day that you earned, so it could be particularly expensive. There's literally nothing I can do. I can exile that, and that does nothing, and I can do this, and yep, I was fairly certain he had the death kill. Yeah, we're gonna get the bronze tier 4 with 2 pips, and that'll be it. It's pretty obvious that where this draft is going. The problem there was I drafted based on color and only color instead of looking at the cards. I don't trust myself enough to look at all 5 color cards and potentially make a 5 color deck. But I think that's kind of what you have to do. As insane as it might seem. Like, I think you might literally have to just take the best of the best cards available to you. And Alright, so what do we want to get rid of? This. Yeah, well, that's crazy. Let's start covering the video game news, I suppose. There's nothing else to really talk about. I've heard people saying that GDC was canceled. I have not seen any firm information about that. I know it was postponed, and I think most people are making the correct assumption that it's probably going to be canceled eventually. But I have not seen an official statement saying it was canceled. One of the Tokyo game events, which are smaller events for sure, was canceled. There wasn't much said about that, of course, because it was a small event that wasn't even getting much hype or coverage anyways in the West. Japanese schools have canceled their schools for a month, although I question whether that means they didn't give all of their students a month's worth of extra homework to do, because that's what they do in summer break. So I wouldn't be surprised one bit if that doesn't really affect the video game sales in Japan much. Like, the Steam version of Plague Inc. on China's version of Steam was also delisted. We may have a comments link to that, but I don't think anything big is happening there. And it's beyond the scope of a video game news show to talk about the current state of the coronavirus too much, so I'm not going to go into major depth on that. Let's see. XX. Can't block. And I guess I can play this? Yeah, get rid of that. Take your pick. One of them's gonna get buffed up. Interesting choice. I think you made the wrong choice. Now, these creatures can't block. And it probably wouldn't be too bad to get rid of things in your graveyard. Let's see. Control another creature with 4 or greater, put 1/1 on it. Alright. Can't attack unless the creature you control has power of 4 or greater. Okay. So we have to let that tap anyways. Beginning of your turn, if you control 4 or greater, exile the top 2 on your cards. Interesting. So he's exiled 2 land cards to try and play them. Okay, put more pips on this guy. Play this. And do this, I guess. And we don't need another land. Although another land might help with that. And draw a card, I guess. Okay. Everybody attack. Now I really just would need a way to do 4 more damage, which might work. Yeah. I buff this guy up, I attack either. Yeah. I attack next turn, and we'll see what happens. Okay. So I've got a 5. We need something that would work otherwise. Okay. Does this guy want to defend? Like, he will block that, clearly. And I will lose next turn, clearly. And if it weren't for this one creature, I would have won. Alright, let's start covering these. TechCraft has an article. Wings GDC Relief Fund is offering financial aid to affected indie developers, which is, I think, basically saying that they're offering some small amount of money from the same company that owns GDC and Gamasutra, that same parent company. They're saying we're going to cover non-refundable flights, non-refundable accommodations and visas, trying really hard, but that is going to be for small game developers, not big time game developers. Alright, we are doomed. Absolutely doomed. Right. If this trample went the other direction, which it doesn't in the blocking, That would be interesting, but that's it. Maybe if you had First Strike and Trample, it would do damage when you're blocking, but I don't think so. So, a pretty pathetic draft. We got 1 pack and 100 gems. And yeah, that's pretty much all this is boiling down to, is getting cards we really don't need to get 100 gems to try and have 3,000 gems without having to spend it for the next mastery level, which it's kind of questionable whether we even need to get the mastery levels. When we look at the collection, we kind of rare draft to the point now where we've filled in everything with 4. This is a card we don't have 1 of. This is a card we only have 2 of. This is a card we have only 3 of. But the rest of these, yeah, we only have 3 of that one, only 3 of that one, only 3 of that one, only 3 of that one, and that one, 2 of that one, 3 of that one. Like, we're very quickly running into a full collection of cards as far as Theros Beyond Death, and that would be the way to look at this. I suppose is go collected, non-collected, and just look at the Theros Beyond Death collection and see that, like, here's a gold card, which I guess is a rare card we don't have. Here's another rare card we don't have. And I guess that would be the only reason why you would want to continue to do drafts, is because the rare cards are rare enough that even as we are approaching having a full amount of commons and uncommons, rares still have value. This is reflected pretty accurately with the monetary value I've seen placed on cards, where people don't even want to bother to try and sell something less than $2, because I imagine all commons and uncommons are below $2 because there's just so many of them printed. I would definitely, if I was in charge of Wizards of the Coast, I'd try to be a lot more consumer friendly, and I would try really hard to lower the instance rate at which mythic rares and rares are. Well, I'd want to increase the instance rate, not lower it. I'd want to make sure every pack had at least 1 rare in it of actual value, and I'd like to see the actual real world value of the cards reduced quite a lot, so it is more reasonable to be able to buy the cards you want without spending $200 to $500 on a single deck. I'd also want to lower the amount of time, increase the amount of time that certain expansions happen. So probably put only out 2, maybe 3 expansions per year. It would be pretty easy to say, for example, last year, if it was just Guilds of Ravnica, Core 2020, and then Ravnica Allegiance, and this was just a year of Ravnica, that would have been nice. Regardless of what actually was in those cards, because that would have meant for the first half of the year, or first third of the year, you have Guilds of Ravnica. Then you have the Core 2020 set come out at the beginning of the second half of the year, which are just reprints, which means most people will still just be playing Guilds of Ravnica. And then you have Ravnica Allegiance come out at the third of the year, and that keeps people playing with the original, gets people back into playing if they've gotten bored with playing with Guilds of Ravnica. That's how I would do it. I would be a much nicer person, frankly, compared to the people who are in charge of Wizards of the Coast. I guess we've just got to play a red deck. We haven't really done anything with the red deck, and we really can't do anything with the red deck right now. Well, I misread this title, and I was going to be a lot more generous. Here. TechRaptor has this article, Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft implicated in Chinese forced labor camps report. I missed the Chinese part, and I was going to be very generous and say maybe this was a forced labor camps report and that there were several other countries that have forced labor camps. Almost certainly there are other countries, but none as bad as what I've heard about for the past year or two of them, in particularly basically putting their Muslim minorities in forced labor camps and concentration camps, and maybe I'm even wrong about this, and they're just putting their general Asian population in forced labor camps. This is the problem with capitalism and globalism, and in a nutshell. This is exactly what people say when they want a global world market, is they want the exploitation of people outside of their country, outside of where laws can be upheld and made. I don't think there's much you can say here, though, other than, yeah, every single electronics manufacturer, in a nutshell, is probably having some part and some component of their device made in China. And if it's made in China, it probably is being made in part some way up that supply chain. There's probably some terrible working conditions of some sort. Now, let me throw a monkey wrench into this, because politics are probably at play here. This was released by the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. What's the deal with Australians? They hate Japanese people for kind of legitimate reasons. Like, Japan did a lot of nasty things to a lot of people in World War II. And Australians in particular are still doing nasty things to their own minorities in Australia. So their own accounting needs to be considered. So this very easily could be just a deflection more than a realization, but it is also, even if there is some politics involved in it, is 100% truth. And all the other countries, first world countries, have been afraid to call out China on its BS, and we're still probably afraid to call out China on the stuff it does. And until that element gets addressed and fixed, until we actually hold them to task and tell them that they have to treat human beings like human beings, we're going to consistently hear these stories and have these problems. It's kind of beyond the scope to center the story around video game companies. That's how people get kind of clicks and clickbaited a little bit, but it's basically all the companies. So here we can see a image of companies up the supply chain, like JDI I don't recognize, but HP, Apple, Mercedes-Benz, Samsung, BMW, Dell, Jaguar, Sony, Land Rover, Lenovo, Huawei, and Volkswagen. So yeah, there's 83 different companies named in this report. The real way to fix this problem is to not do business with countries that do things like that. It's just that simple. It's to control the supply chains within your own nation, where you have legal control, and abandon the idea of a global economy in general, or global manufacturing. You just have to have minimum wage employees working in factories in the United States versus no wage employees working in factories in China. And that probably would mean things were a lot more expensive, and that probably would mean things were often out of stock and in shortages. But those aren't inherently bad things. Like, the only reason why people consume as much as they do in the United States is because things are cheap and things are advertised way too much. If things started being really expensive, if you had to pay $500 for a PlayStation 4, a lot of people would soon make the better decision that they should just save their money for something better or something cheaper, which that's not a consideration that happens in a lot of people's minds these days. Instead, it's I think I can afford it because it's cheap now and I want it, and I've been brought up in this society where I should just consume. There kind of is nothing wrong with encouraging your society to be more frugal. Yeah, I think that would be an interesting message. I'm gonna step into the role of pretending like I'm the person in charge of the world in the United States for a moment and say, hey, as the coronavirus is happening right now, it's a great time to maybe save your money, pay down debt, if that's a big factor to you, or if you have debts that you can't clear in bankruptcy. First of all, consider going bankrupt. If you have a ton of debt, don't get into a debt payment plan. Those are schemes, all of them. They are run by creditors to reaffirm and lock you into debt that you could have had cheaper, easily discharged in bankruptcy for less money and less frustration. But yeah, pay down debt if you can, if it's student loans, and you're likely going to have to pay off your student loans. But go out to restaurants less. That will protect you from getting infected from any kind of disease, flu or coronavirus or anything. Just live your life with your family in your home, and read a book. You know, go down to the library and get a book. Do things that are free, or relatively free, at least. Watch more YouTubers. Go shopping less. Don't go to malls. Don't go to retail stores. The only place you kind of have to go is a grocery store once you run out of food. So try to shop less often at the grocery store, and perhaps have pickup or delivery. That's what they've been doing now. More lately, is that you can literally at some grocery stores now just have it all waiting for you, not even have to walk inside, which is also great for consumerism, because if you're not playing the game that grocery stores do, where they intentionally make it impossible to find anything, so that you have to go up and down every aisle and you see more brightly colored advertisements in your face, so you buy more. Yeah, just embrace the simple life. Create something, write a story, start a diary, do something creative, paint a picture, things like that, instead of consuming. Would be interesting. I'd also argue that you could, assuming you are healthy and don't have any absolute need for just like a super high protein diet, you could also try to go with like one more day without meat or one day a week without meat, a meatless Monday type concept. That stops that starts the United States in particular down a path in which we would have less cattle and animals that are ranching, um, which in the long run actually helps because it creates a scenario where there's less animals in cramped spaces that can potentially get the same kind of flu-like viruses and diseases and sicknesses that can be then incubated in the cattle and then contaminated to the ranchers, who then bring it into the human spectrum. So just less animals in general in ranching, factory farming would help a little bit. It would also just help in general if more people ate less meat. Not even for like ethical reasons. It's just health reasons. Like, so yeah, that's what I would be telling people. I'd say maybe buy government bonds if you want to support your government. Like, as the stock markets are falling apart, maybe you do that, maybe you don't. But instead, what I see is a lot of people doing Wall Street bets on Reddit and trying to short the stock markets as they fail. And I can personally never get a feeling with the stock markets because they always feel overinflated. Like, it always feels like there's about 5,000 extra points in the Dow, for instance, which is usually around 25,000 points. Like, it feels like it's probably actually saturated in its actual valuation at about 20,000. So, I'm perhaps so super conservative economically there that I wouldn't really recommend anybody invest in any of those stock exchanges until they were almost at a all-time low, because there's just so much shenanigans and bad accounting happening on those companies. And the stock markets, while often claim to be indicators of the economy, they're not really great indicators of the economy. They're flim-flam. They're exaggeration, because they do nothing to highlight people who are unemployed. They show nothing about companies that are private companies, how many private companies have gone out of business or started. They do nothing to talk about the general well-being of any average U.S. citizens. They are simply indications of how those specific companies have managed to make a certain amount of money, which is only slightly helpful. I've devolved into a economics rant, though, at that point. Yeah, Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, though, the story was that they're implicated in Chinese forced labor camps, which is really to say China is implicated in the forced labor camps. Like, I don't know. One thing that's pretty common when dealing with Chinese companies is that they will more than happily lie to you. So I don't know if anybody's going to find any proof to say that any company outside of China knew that in these parts were being built in these kind of labor camps. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a whole manner of lying and hiding going on there, where they showed them pictures of a different factory and they showed them like fake happy workers, and they probably gave them all kinds of forms and information. And it's not like any company is really going to dig too deep to say, oh, well, they told us that they weren't using slave labor, so why would we question it any further than that? Even if they kind of knew, they didn't want to know. And it does kind of implicate everybody at this point, which perhaps it should. Perhaps it should just be a case of anybody whatsoever willing to do any business with China is knowingly at this point doing business with a country that uses slave labor, and that's a problem. Of course, then in the United States, we effectively have a backdoor slavery also in our prison systems, so we really can't be the first one to cast a stone there, because that's been going on for decades, and no other country has really done anything about that, or refused to really do business with us for that reason per se. Yep. It would be very interesting to see what the United States would look like if we had to manufacture everything inside of our own borders. I don't think it would be as bad as people often draw it up. Like, things would be more expensive, sure. There'd be a lot of stuff not available, sure. But I think we probably could do just fine. It's more in the agriculture that we would have the most trouble. Day to day, we would have to shift our diets away from some types of foods towards things that could be farmed locally, or things that are or healthier, or more nutrient dense. Reach in haste. Three damage to one creature. Kinda wish I could play that, but I can't. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Builders of Egypt Prologue, which I guess also might be a reference to slave labor, other than the fact that historians seem to believe now that the pyramids, at the very least, were not built on slave labor. So yeah, this looks like an Egyptian-centric society sim, which kind of is building like a city building simulator on hard mode, frankly. Having to have your entire society live off the Nile. This is free with a bunch of languages, but then it has a third-party EULA, so I don't know why, and it's early access. So yeah, this doesn't look terrible, but I assume because it's called a prologue, there will be a other game called Builders of Egypt that will actually cost money, and they're trying to hype up. It's really, really weird to have a demo or a prologue of a game and then that also be in early access, so that they've effectively double early accessed here, because they can't even have a finished vertical slice of the game to show people. Let's see. This guy seems like he has nothing. seems odd that he has no other cards that he can play. Okay. We can now do this. Oh, that was during an opponent's turn. Darn it. So I played wrong there. Wasted that. Next we have a game on Steam called TARS, T-A-R-S, with periods in between. And I cannot tell one bit what it is. It seems to just be some kind of dark screenshot something or other. It's just so incredibly black. Like, it's probably some asset flip horror game, survival game. It's $1.69, English only. Yep, and I really can't say anything more than that. Alright. Top deals 2 damage. And then this does 2 damage here. And then we attack here. It's odd he has so many, he's gone so many turns and not been able to play any other creatures. Charlie is of course not making it to the fall list. And then next. And no attacks. And then end. Next we have a game on Steam called Chess Sudoku, which seems to be a Unity one-screen Sudoku / chess game. I don't even see any chess elements here. I guess maybe chess is, it's called Chess Sudoku because of these like brown sections. That I have seen that there have been some concepts added to Sudoku. I don't know if that's a new thing or what, but I guess maybe they figured they needed to make Sudoku more difficult. But yeah, I don't want to try and cover a Sudoku game, and I don't think it makes a lot of sense to have Sudoku games on Steam. It makes this implication that it doesn't really make a lot of sense that there's a large number of old people that like to do puzzles that have Steam accounts, and while I think there might be some of that, I don't think that there's a ton of that. Let's see. And it's probably more just a case of well, I lost there. I don't know how I lost, but I lost. He must have countered the spell. Oh, 1000 XP. Gives me another pack. Are any of these new? That's new. So let's go back to our collection. We got a third copy of this, our first copy of this, and our fourth copy of that. That's not terrible for one pack. Now we need to play blue or white, and I definitely don't want to play blue, so I'm going to go with, well, actually blue or white would work better on this new deck I built, the flying blue and white deck. You know, if it was as easy as just doing it, I should be streaming at 7 in the morning, and I was kind of awake at 7 in the morning, and I thought about it, but I'm like, man, I'm gonna be really, really sleepy and end early if I do that. But yeah, if I was running this like a business, I would probably have to hire somebody to make sure they streamed for me half the time at the right times when people actually hop on the chat and start talking, because this is not really working. Yeah, we're not getting a lot of people later in the evening. And I was streaming in the evening for many years, and clearly that was a mistake. So I guess if you're an aspiring YouTuber, get in on the morning. I don't understand that, but I guess there's just more people that can watch YouTube at school and work than I thought was reasonable, or than I thought there was. Let's see. Matt throws an article here for the PS4. Spellbreak PS4 closed beta begins March 3rd. This is some kind of JRPG, I guess. Although that doesn't really look like a JRPG thing as much as a almost infinite runner ability running through fire. Looks more like a player versus player type game. Yeah. This doesn't look like an RPG. This looks more like Overwatch with people casting spells, which I don't think that's going to probably beat Overwatch or Fortnite, and I don't know if there's even a lot of desire for another Fortnite or Overwatch. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article here. Longtime Call of Duty developer and co-studio head Jason Blundell has departed Treyarch. So this was, I think, the Jason we saw they were talking about on Friday, and they did not make it clear. Yeah, this is that tweet. So I guess maybe he's not going to be making anything like Call of Duty or the Call of Duty Zombies elements in particular, or he's going to a new company to make something exactly like Call of Duty, which, yeah, I mean, take your pick. I don't think there's a lot of demand out there for a Call of Duty, a third militaristic first-person shooter series, and I don't think there's a lot of demand out there for zombies. After 13 years of him making those type of games, I would like to see at least a 50% shift into making some other kind of first-person shooter game, or up to 100% shift where he just doesn't even make a first-person shooter at all. I could see him wanting to do something completely different. Other flank creatures get +1/+1. And no attacks. And we'll see what this does. Next we have a game on Steam called Spacewalk Defender, which looks like a VR game where you're standing in one place shooting guns at spaceships, which doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I wouldn't be surprised if that would be a decent way to control guns on a ship in some kind of spaceship in the future, or in a sci-fi series, just in a 360 VR environment, shooting guns that you're holding in your hand to represent shooting guns that are gigantic barrel cannons on the ships. This is $9.99, which is relatively cheap for a VR game. It's English only. So it is still very much in that category of standing in one place and shooting. Well, do we want to do that? Which I'm not sure about the. I never really feel like these standing in one place shooting games in VR have enough to sell themselves. Let's see. Next we have a game called Ninja Apple, which looks like kind of an MS Paint platformer. Doesn't look very interesting. Early access, $9.99 English and French. So a cheap French game. We don't get a ton of those. We don't get a ton of great French games either. Ubisoft, I believe, being a French company. Let's see. So we bring out that, and we play that. That helps us how? Really doesn't. Just keep on playing cards. Next we have a game on Steam called SRC Sprint Robot Championship. It looks like it's an infinite runner, which could also cause motion sickness. It has a decent amount of visual polish on it from the looks of it. Is there something here I want to play though? Like if this was a regular racing game, would I want to play it? Because that's the real comparison here. Does switching a car to a robot change much? It's $13.49. It's English only. It has 31 achievements. I think this one deserves a follow. Like, we'll see what people say. So far it's positive. Okay. Block. Go ahead and block that. And then that. None of these have abilities. Tech Raptor has an article, Borderlands 3 roadmap for spring 2020 announced. I think we had already kind of seen this, though, so nothing really to say there other than, yeah, Borderlands is still making content. There's also, I guess, somewhat worth mentioning that Death Stranding is coming to the Epic Store, for whatever that accounts for. I seriously doubt we're going to see a lot of people deciding to... how many cards does he have? 61 versus 43.
Always an answer.
Yeah, I seriously doubt that there's going to be anybody that wants to play Death Stranding still left. I think the people who are hyped on it either were satisfied somewhat, at least somewhat satisfied with Death Stranding when they first got it and played it when it first came out, or they are completely dissatisfied and they're not likely to rebuy it on PC. And anybody who was sitting on the fence and iffy about it, I think there's been enough negative reaction to what that game is, or at least enough revelation as to what Death Stranding actually is, that people I don't think are gonna go down that route of trying to play it, because people now know what it is and the hype is dead on it.
How you played.
There we go. So this guy is gonna get more and more health, and I'm gonna continuously try to get rid of cards. That's 7.
This one I will remember.
Okay. Let's put this on the field so we can scry too.
It's a matter of giving.
So this guy could probably beat me at this point, even if I did block a whole bunch of things. So yeah, I'm just gonna go no block, and then that destroys that strategy, which, okay, I'm doomed now. This is the thing that would have had to win, is I would have had to been able to attack here, 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 and bring him down significantly in health. And that's just not going to happen. If I had perhaps not used this and saved it for much later in the game. But yeah. Best case scenario is you do this. Still negative 20 down. Okay, well that solves the daily quests. It definitely doesn't solve any victories. Let's go ahead and play standard rank since we are at a new month, and we'll probably get some amazing quick victories here. Won't be particularly hard to get back up to wherever we were. I think we were at gold tier. We didn't make it to platinum, which is where we would have gotten like 2-pack rewards. TechRaptor has an article here. Pokemon Go March update brings Shadow Inte, Stardust bonus, and more. Check out this article if you're really interested. I'm going to not check it out because I'm not interested. Gamma Sutra has an article here. EA is working with FIFA 20 players to test and fix connectivity issues. I feel like EA should have fixed and tested their connectivity issues before they released the game. Yeah, it is super annoying in Batman Arkham Asylum that I got kicked out of that game twice for having no connectivity, when there's literally no online leaderboard and no online component whatsoever in that game. So I didn't see on a quick search that it has something like Denuvo, but clearly it has an always online DRM, whatever it is, regardless of which one, and that's unacceptable in my book. Valve went on kind of a tweet storm, which Valve barely has made this new account, 43 tweets for Half-Life Alyx. They basically made it for Half-Life Alyx, and then they went on a bit of a tweet storm talking about it's available on March 23rd. They released a video. They're trying to hype up things. They're retweeting IGN. They've got a three connected tweet here. Selling merch and stuff. And then they're mostly just retweeting things like Steam's store page. And Dota Underlords was tweeted February 25th. They've only made 43 tweets in total. I guess this is what Valve would look like if Valve was getting back into the market of making video games and was going to really stick with that idea. We are not at a point where I actually believe that that is the case, though. I still feel like Half-Life Alyx could be a short, low-effort experience just designed to sell the VR headsets that they were working on, and then we hear nothing of real importance as far as game releases from them for many years going forward. I've kind of already won the game, and I could have attacked with that too, and should have, but whatever. Gamasutra has an article here. It's a video understanding the illusion of choice in game design. They had an interesting thumbnail on this, but the thumbnail's not even shown here, where it was almost like a meme image of first-person shooter in 1993, and it shows a nice elaborate floor plan layout, and then a first-person shooter in 2020, and it's just a straight line and a cutscene, a straight line and a cutscene, a straight line and a cutscene, which Batman Arkham Asylum in particular was kind of bad at that. Well, let's see. There's kind of no reason not to do that, is there? Because watch. If he tries to attack, I'll just defend with this, and then I'll bring him back anyways. TechRaptor has an article here. The Atari VCS may be delayed due to the coronavirus. I don't think anybody particularly cares, because I don't think anybody particularly wants the Atari VCS as a Nintendo Mini with Atari games. I can understand having legitimate nostalgia for the NES and the Sega Genesis, but if you have actual nostalgia for an Atari system and the Atari games and that terrible Atari controller, you need to reevaluate your life and think about how terrible that really was as an experience. And yeah, I don't know what else to really say there. It's alright, so do we want Blight Beetle? I don't think I want Blight Beetle on the field. I kind of want him to play two more characters so I can play this. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Madhouse, which looks like a low-effort asset flip adventure game of some sort. $24.99, way too expensive, English and Germany. Yeah. Don't see nothing there. Choose a blocker. Click block. Sacrifice. Submit. Play this. Take that. Seriously? Do I not? I still don't have enough? May have to take a hit here. I need to draw a mana producing card next turn. Otherwise I potentially am going to take several hits. Let's see. We have a Switch game article here from Gamatsu. Inuwashi for Switch launches March 26th in Japan, 3 weeks after the PC release, which is saying something, certainly. Inuwashi. I haven't heard of this. Let's see. It's a visual novel, apparently. Guess the thing to do would be look at its listing on Steam, or let this resolve first. Resolve. Pass. Might as well sacrifice a card here. And we might as well put that. Yeah, I'm sure. Put it back on the field. Why does it start saying, are you sure? That's super annoying. And I think we've got this now. This guy's gonna do 1 damage to himself each turn if he doesn't want to do something different. And I'm gonna potentially gain 1 life. Resolve. Then how does he do the 1 more damage? So here's that game on Steam. It's clearly a Japanese only game. It's some kind of mystery visual novel character. The name Inuwashi implies to me that it is that this character in yellow might be a girl, but it's kind of hard to tell. It might be that this is actually the main character and these are just guys. Yeah, that might be the case since she is on the title. English is not supported, unfortunately, so this seems like it's kind of a big deal visual novel, but not really, because it's pretty easy to get on Switch, particularly only in Japan. Right. So I'm going to choose a blocker, which will be this guy. Block. I'm going to sacrifice this. And I'm going to put this here. I think we've got it. Black. And yep, next turn we devastate him. And we, let's see, do we want to really attack with anything? No. End the turn. So ideally, what I want to see here is I need to, what's this going to do? This is going to do 2 damage to this. So we're going to sacrifice that one instead. And then what we want to see is a way of blocking this. Now, a way of blocking that. And he doesn't want to play that game. Alright, well, you've lost. And here's the reason why. Now I'm just going to attack this way. and you can decide to block whether you want to or not. If you block, I sacrifice one of my characters with this. Okay. We need to kill one of these guys. Doesn't matter who. Yes. So actually, let's not use the oven. Let's just do that. Alright. Now, can I do this? Yeah, I played out of order there. I should have played this first and then done it, but you know what, we'll just keep on doing this. We'll just destroy his resolve and hope that he just gives up. Yep. One of the things I could do to help my back while playing this is I do have a better reclining chair. I have one of those old people chairs that helps you stand up even, but it's in the other room, so I'm caught between this problem where I would absolutely ruin my back trying to get the chair that would help my back into the place I need it to be. And yeah, there's kind of nothing I can do short of hiring somebody to help me move it. And it would definitely not be easy to move either. Yeah, there's a tight corner or two. It's more heavy, I think, more than anything. Last time we had it when it was first installed. It would potentially be easier to move my entire computer, but that really wouldn't work either. Okay, so we block this. Resolve. Let's play this. Submit that. Sacrifice this. Play it again. Play it again, Sam. And yeah, that's a victory. Attack here for 2, then we just sacrifice it and play it back for 1 more. So a lot of clicks, to pull all that off, but it works. So I'm not going to complain about getting a victory. It would have been nice if he conceded a lot earlier than that, but whatever. Getting another cosmetic. We're approaching rank 60. I don't see any reason why we won't make it to rank 90. Worst case scenario, I think we maybe make it to rank 89 before the next expansion happens. I doubt even that would be the case. Next we have a game on Steam called Chrono Station, which looks like a space strategy game or a shoot 'em up game with just a lot of dotted lines. I think it's a space strategy game. They're calling it a tower defense real-time strategy. $9.99, bunch of languages. Doesn't look interesting. I really just don't have that that boyish love of space. I don't know if I just didn't grow up at the right time. I like Babylon 5. I like Star Trek, the first and second series, fine. And I didn't particularly hate any of the other Star Treks. I kind of liked the broad idea of Stargate, the TV series, and the Stargate movies. Stargate first movie. But I just really don't count myself as being obsessed with space. I liked Farscape, but I don't know if perhaps I like Farscape for its characters and its storytelling, in spite of its of it being kind of a space story. The Lost in Space TV series, which I just watched on Netflix, very, very nice space story too. You're not getting something that is too bright like the Orville, which I kind of like the Orville in general, but I think the writing was pretty bad. And then it lost all interest once it was no longer on regular cable TV. The new Star Trek CBS All Access stuff I have no interest in watching, or Star Trek Discovery. The new Star Trek movies I had no interest in. Yeah, just it's just kind of a large swath of things. I think too bright and colorful like Orville is a problem. Too dark and Battlestar Galactica reboot-ish is a problem. In general, I think the Battlestar Galactica reboot, I think episode to episode is probably not as good as it should be. It's a little too dark, it's a little too low budget. Even though it looks very pretty, the acting, I think, felt a little low budget. Sci-fi in general is treated terribly in TV, and sometimes you can get a decent sci-fi single movie, but that's about it. One would have hoped that with Netflix and Hulu and services like that, we would have seen an improvement in sci-fi in their quality, but I just don't know if the audience is there. Like, well, do we want to sacrifice this guy? Guess we do. Because look, I can now attack with this and this, and either one's gonna work. Actually, I could have attacked with this one too. But I guess I'll account for maybe he has a spell that could do 2 damage, and then he could defend with that and do 1 damage. Let's go ahead and sacrifice this food also. And sure. Take that out. So now he's down to 1. Yeah, can't really do anything because I can just block, and this guy will do 1 damage. So unless he can kill this one guy, I can then just do that, and he'll just concede before that happens. And we're gonna get the win streaks going pretty soon here. Bronze tier 1. Didn't drop me, I think, all the way down to the beginning levels. There's really no reason why it would have. We have a game here called Vigil of Glory Part 1, a Part 1 game of a low effort, ugly looking game. This probably would have been an interesting amount of graphics in the 80s, but not in the 2020s. Early access, $2.99 English. Why are you even making this game? If this is the first thing you're going to put forward and show off, why are you even trying? This is not even quality enough to be reasonable. Go make an asset flip instead. At least if you were using somebody else's assets, it would look like a modern, reasonable amount of quality. Alright, let's go ahead and... well, I guess you want to get rid of Taste of Death in this scenario. Like, for as much as I rail against asset flip games, having something look worse than an asset flip is ironically even more pathetic. Let's see. Guess what we want to do until we can get more swamps is just see this, see if we can get as many people on board as fast as possible. Yeah, you can kind of see the problem here. It's gonna take 2 more turns if I don't get a swamp to even get the Witch's Oven on the field and use that strategy appropriately. Next we have a game on Steam called Lost Fairy VR, which looks like it's an Asian style horror game with a lot of dark screenshots and no real indication of any actual gameplay at all. No enemies, no items you're picking up, no guns. Requires VR, $5.99 English and Chinese. It's probably a Chinese asset flip, but it is interesting that it's in VR. That certainly is something. And I don't know if there's any real commentary to give on the fact that it's a Chinese game coming out right now in the middle of the coronavirus. And does that mean something, or does that not mean anything? Who knows? Next we have a game on Steam called I'll Just Call It Dead Poops. It's a little surprising this wasn't red flagged and blocked, that you could have an actual bad word in the plural put into the Steam database and nobody care. Nobody say, let's look at this. It looks like it's a garbage asset flip game. Player versus player. It's early access. It's $17.99. It's English, German, and Chinese. Like, yeah. That is pretty ridiculous that that Steam would not have any kind of search or just default check on their database. Like, now, if this guy doesn't decide to... Right. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna block this. And then we're gonna see what happens. Make sure that guy's dead. And then I'm gonna take this, sacrifice this. And put this on the field. Like that. Now I've got 2, which doubles the amount of times I can do this each turn. There's no point in attacking, because even if this one did block and didn't have vigilance, he would just untap at the beginning of the opponent's turn. So we're in a rush here where I'm going to take 6 damage each turn. And I'm going to have to be very careful about doing this each possible opportunity I can. Twice just to recover 2 health. Until I can get a swamp. And if I can get a swamp, then at least that helped a little. A tiny amount. So next turn I can play this, and then I could sacrifice it with the oven to have a flying creature to block once, but that's... I don't think I'm guaranteed a victory here. I should have mulliganed again, is what I should have done. Block. Okay. Was totally a path for victory here. It's just going to be a matter of keeping my health high enough. Finally. Got it. Which I think means I can skip to this point. I think that saves the day. Next, we have a game on Steam called Send Them to the Sky. It's pretty obvious I didn't curate these games. It seems like it's some kind of game where you just cast spells on people and they levitate. Seems like it's basically a tech demo at best. $1.99 English only. Or a joke game at best. So that increases his life total. Okay. Let's see what happens here. Okay. You do this. And then we do this. And then we do this. Then we click block. And then we do this. We kill that. And we put that back on the field to buff this one up. And then we do it again. So even if he had any cards in his hands, it wouldn't help him. I think we've got it. Just no attacks now. And then this can block this, or can block that one. This one could actually block this one, and this one could block that one, and then this one could block that one. So he's kind of completely out of options. Meanwhile, now I'll get 4 health up. So this guy has double strike, he's no problem there. We can still take him out. Come on. Process. Process games. Seriously? Is he just gonna concede? Alright, well, Gamma Sutra has this article. Modus Games Narrative Puzzler Lost Words is the first on Stadia exclusive. We already talked about that. I don't know why that thing is still up, or why I opened that article again. Another game on NVIDIA GeForce Now has been pulled down. If I hope I have that article so I can name the game, but regardless, the narrative seems to be that GeForce Now really didn't lock down things. It is an interesting idea. How easy would it be for your competitors who you kind of have to work with to spin the narrative and say, oh, you didn't negotiate right, or you didn't have permission to do what you're doing, when maybe there was some early agreements on that part, but nothing written in contractual form. That might be exactly what happened, or it might be literally just a case of NVIDIA thinking they could do something that without actually having permission. That's never a really good business model, regardless of how legally in the right you might be. Having people come back and saying you're doing something that they don't like only works if you are rich enough to say, yeah, I'm doing something that like the cell phone companies don't like, or regular cable television. Even when you see how satellite companies are constantly fighting with local broadcasters, it's a weird split there between who sides with who. I guess I can just attack here and here, and that's kind of it. Yeah, we don't need to go any further. We can just sacrifice this. Put that back on the field. And then sacrifice it again. I played horribly on that game, and I still won. Probably mostly because I was at a very low rank, but there is something to be said about this deck. But it is certainly also a deck you have to just handhold and baby way more than I would like. Next we have a game on Steam called Island of U, which seems, if I was to guess, a U is like a female sheep, I think. So you're playing as a sheep, or you're carrying a sheep, or carrying a bunch of sheep. Alright. So look like there might be something here. It's free to play. It's English only. It's single player. It's weird. Why would you release your game completely free to play? There's no in-app purchases or anything like that. It's probably incredibly small, but I don't know what to do with it. I guess I put it on the fall list, but I would never really cover a free-to-play game. I can really just come back and say right now you should probably check out Isle of U, because looks like it's interesting somewhat. It looks like it's visually polished enough to actually be a game. Next we have a game on Steam called Into the Valley, where it seems like you're playing as a African in 3000 BC. Is this an asset flip survival game, or is this a history game? It's just not very well polished. I'm not sure how well people would want to play a game like that. It opens up a lot of claims of racism by even touching the subject, even if you're trying to do it as kind and honest and generous as possible. Here we're seeing lines of dialogue. You're not that clever, and you're weak and inexperienced. So, yeah, there might be some overtones in a game like this that you wouldn't want to touch. $9.99, English only. I think that's where something like Horizon Zero Dawn works way better. Effectively, Horizon Zero Dawn is a story of Horizon Zero Dawn could have been a story of a character who was from Africa thousands of years ago, or a Native American from hundreds of years ago in the United States, but by setting it in this sci-fi element, you have that extra layer of obfuscation that helps, and it also lets them have robots instead of just animals, which fighting animals in general would be kind of boring. I'm gonna do no blocks on this one. We're gonna have to just trade for a while. Next we have a game on Steam that's just a bunch of Asian characters, and it looks like it's an asset flip first person shooter. There's like no enemies, with the exception, it seems, of birds flying up around, and trying to take out a bunch of birds or bats or whatever with a gun makes no sense. I can't help but think that this is coronavirus related. Running around with a gun shooting bats. 99 cents, Chinese only. Might lose here. I need something to change. I've got plenty of swamps, and Bola Citadel would be the winner. And I probably do have close to enough swamps for Bola Citadel, but my health will be too low if in a couple turns to actually play it. This guy will keep creating characters no matter what. So we've got to just take him out. I hope that's what I do. Next we have a game on Steam called Panic Station VR, which looks like a VR stand in one place shooting guns with bullets bouncing around, which that is a new twist. Unfortunately, it's a little dark screenshot syndrome and a little asset flippy, but I can't say I hate the idea of potentially having all the bullets bounce around and hit other enemies that way, particularly in a VR game where you have to stand. It's free to play, English only. Well, you have to stand in one place. You don't have to actually physically stand, but your character won't be running and gunning in a VR game. Well, this will save me a little bit. Bola Citadel really is the only thing that can save me now. Next we have a game on Steam called Savage Vessels, which looks like it's a space shoot 'em up in caverns. Yeah. Which, like so many other shoot 'em ups in space games, still not particularly interesting to me. Seems like maybe there's a rope element to it where you're clinging to walls. It's $11.04, English only. Yeah. This might interest somebody, but again, very dark screenshots. Everything seems to be particularly dark today. Yeah, I have like one more turn, and that's it. If Bola Citadel does not activate if I don't draw Bola Citadel in the next turn, I might as well concede. Let's see. TechRaptor has this article: Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering worlds collide in mythic odysseys of Theros. Now, here's a thing that I don't think was the case when I was playing Ice Age with Magic the Gathering back then. I don't think Wizards of the Coast owned Dungeons and Dragons. It was White Wolf that owned Dungeons and Dragons. Apparently, they merged at some point, perhaps when Hasbro bought both of them, and at that level, now they're owned by the same company. It feels like maybe some of the stories that are being told in Magic the Gathering are heavily influenced by, if not directly connected to, Dungeons and Dragons. And I kind of would like to know, if anybody knows, and let me know in a comment, when did this happen? Has this always been the case? Has there always, have they always been the same worlds? Because I kind of don't recall Planeswalkers ever being mentioned in Dungeons and Dragons. Although, in all fairness, I barely played Magic the Gathering and Ice Age for maybe a year, and I've never played any of Dungeons and Dragons. But is that the direction this is going? Are these cinematic universes, for lack of a better descriptor, getting merged? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I didn't really even know Dungeons and Dragons had kind of a connected storyline world that it was telling. I kind of didn't know that Magic the Gathering had a story, a canon it was telling. I thought they were both generally just rule sets for creating your own fictional worlds, but apparently that stopped being the case. So, yeah. Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering are two of the biggest tabletop universes to exist, which, with incredible lore and multiple awarded winning games, Wizards of the Coast decided to combine the two extraordinary worlds to create Mythic Odysseys of Theros, a Dungeons and Dragons campaign source book set in the Magic the Gathering world of Theros. So this is brand new that they're merging it together. Players will now have a chance to explore the realms of Theros as Satyr or Leonin, both new races coming to the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons straight from Magic the Gathering. Yeah. Which, inherently, the merger here does kind of feel like that's an admittance that sales are down or popularity is down of something, and that they're doing their best to ensure that doesn't happen, that they can keep their sales up. I wouldn't be surprised if there are snotty people who play Dungeons and Dragons and hate Magic. I wouldn't be surprised if there are people who play Magic and hate Dungeons and Dragons people. So I'm not sure how culturally successful that merger would be. And I'm not sure if that improves the storyline at all. Something is probably going to feel like second fiddle and less focused on. And I wouldn't be surprised if it is Dungeons and Dragons, because they've kind of completely failed to make Dungeons and Dragons playable for new players or a wider audience. Despite the fact that they've seen quite a few YouTuber channels and streamer channels try and do that, try and play Dungeons and Dragons on YouTube and stream it on Twitch, and it just kind of doesn't work. It takes too long. There needs to be some more accelerated, more under automated control system. A little computer that they could put into it, like they put the little computers to do all the math in Monopoly, a version like that would be very helpful. Alright. Let's see. I'm gonna block this. And then we sacrifice this. There's basically no way this is gonna save me. So, interesting merger. It's kind of bad timing. Like, let's just face it. Kind of bad timing to have Magic the Gathering Arena out for basically in beta for a year, and then now I'm playing it, and I would say it's kind of out of beta now, but it's still missing a lot of features. So if they were going to do a merger with I would have said, we're going to have Magic Arena out, it's going to be very good, it's going to have a mobile version, and by the way, if you don't really care about Magic Arena, we're also merging the worlds of Dungeons & Dragons and Magic the Gathering, and that is going to be a great starting point for new players to play Magic Arena, or play the new or play the old card games, or play Dungeons & Dragons. Take your pick, play your way. I mean, you literally could have had a very good marketing campaign with just the play how you want to play concept being pushed. And inevitably, the real desire is to get people playing 2 or 3 of those styles, both Paper Magic, Magic Arena, and Dungeons & Dragons. And there's plenty of other Dungeons & Dragons spin-off games or video games set in the world of Dungeons & Dragons, for example Baldur's Gate, that people don't really even know are kind of in the world of Dungeons & Dragons, and those are licensed games, so I'm not sure if Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast even cares about those. In fact, it might be the exact opposite scenario. It might be that they had to license out things like Baldur's Gate many years ago to make money and stay afloat, and now they're regretting that idea, and they're trying to decanonize things like Baldur's Gate and instead emphasize on a story that they haven't licensed out, thus they can do whatever they want with it, which would be magic. Here's the announcement. Death Stranding is coming to the Epic Games Store on June 2nd, 2020. Again, I don't think there's going to be a big audience of people playing Death Stranding here. I don't think people are going to want to play it twice. I don't think people that were sitting on the fence are going to want to play it at all. I am by far much more hyped to potentially play Borderlands 3, and I'm not really hyped to even play that. Open Critic has an article here. The Final Fantasy VII demo arrives on PS4 as Square Enix begins to focus on the second episode, which is to say they've put a demo out for the first fraction of the remake. They also updated the Final Fantasy III port on Steam and seemingly made it worse. So yeah, that's another thing to keep in consideration. Play that and attack with that. We are like nowhere near the point where people should be interested in the Final Fantasy VII remake. Like, nobody should be hyped on it. Nobody should be interested at all until it's a finished product. Until they've got the Game of the Year version that puts all of Final Fantasy VII at least in one package. And you have at that point the confirmation that they actually finished remaking all of Final Fantasy VII. Because I really wouldn't put it past Square Enix for them to go bankrupt before they're done with the Final Fantasy VII remake. or just give up halfway, or do a very bad job at it. All seem like very possible possibilities. Let's see. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Over 2/3 of Baldur's Gate's free engine is brand new, which doesn't really mean anything, frankly, because you could manipulate the way you account for code and have almost all of it be brand new. There's really no reason why you shouldn't just assume that that it isn't all brand new code. I know games are usually developed iteratively, so there should be some code you could use from Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, but also kind of no. Particularly if Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 was developed on its own engine, and if they moved over to something more like Unity or Unreal, of course then almost everything has to be brand new. Alright, I think I can play all this. This one doesn't have reach. This one doesn't have reach. So, I don't know. Let's just do no attacks. Yeah, looking at this screenshot, this looks like something you could make in Unreal. Don't really see a reason why it would have to be its own custom engine. There's been very, very little talk of games with custom engines in the past 5 years or so. It has definitely become less of a thing to be proud of, and a lot more talk of just using Unity or Unreal, and perhaps a little bit more code sharing is happening in general to help improve things like Unity and Unreal instead of hoarding all your source code for your one game. I don't think we're gonna win this. Open Critic has an article here. Riot Games reveals Valorant, a tactical hero shooter. Not sure I would trust Riot Games to... Riot, I believe, is the League of Legends company. And yeah, it looks like it's Counter-Strike Go, basically. A Fortnite-esque appearance on a Counter-Strike Go type gameplay. Seems pretty basic. League of Legends is Riot's other game. And it seems like there's really only two characters they're emphasizing, which probably means if you take anything from that, which you probably shouldn't, if there are only two players, then it's just going to be player versus player. It's going to get very boring very fast. It's going to have long load times and queues. And I still don't know why you wouldn't want to just play Counter-Strike Go instead. Now we've got a thing that's not loading. If we want to talk about a blast from the past, Gamasutra has the free to begin, I think is a better descriptor, game Let It Die for PS4 and PC. It's gotten 6 million downloads. I would definitely indicate that it's a free to begin game, though. It is not a real free to play game. It's way too much grinding from what I vaguely recall, and it had some things definitely locked behind purchases from what I recall, which, man, it's been a while. It's been a really long time. It's been, feels like 2 years ago. Yep. No, it's been 3 years. It launched in 2016 on the PlayStation 4. And a little shocking that it went to PC. Nowadays, it's not very shocking that PlayStation 4 exclusives or games that could have been PlayStation 4 exclusives have also decided to be PC. games. Let's see. Well, go ahead and tap that guy. What can we do? He's got a bunch of people flying. And guess I need to attack it with this. TechRaptor has an article here. The Apex Legends system override patch details new gear and meta changes. If you're interested in that, check out this TechRaptor article. I'm gonna not actually read it. We actually didn't have a lot of news today. It's just I'm moving slow still, and I'm trying to rush and not have these streams be as long. It'd be nice. It'd be real nice if I could find a way to just put the stream for an hour every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But unfortunately, the daily quests are a little too demanding for that. Let alone the 10 to 15 victories they want you to get every day. And there have been a couple times where I've said, yeah, I'm going to play off screen, and then I really don't play off screen. It's just too much effort, too much waste of time. And I need to start recording the next game I'm going to play and just keep on making progress with that. Keep on uploading things. I need to schedule and do all the paperwork for Arkham Asylum. That always sucks. Game Sutra has an article. Get a job. Industrial Toys is hiring a senior software engineer. Industrial Toys at EA in Pasadena, California. They make mobile games. Apparently. I've never heard of them. And you'd be working for EA, which take that as a warning. Here's that game I was talking about from Gamma Sutra. Hinterland Studio pulls the game The Long Dark from GeForce Now. Let's see. The quote here is, NVIDIA didn't ask for our permission to put the game on the platform, so we asked them to remove it. Please take your complaints to them, not us. So, yeah. This is after Activision and Bethesda removed the bulk of their games also from NVIDIA GeForce Now. Yeah. So you've got 3 separate companies that really don't have a history of working together to the point where you can say, oh, they all conspired together and made made this false narrative that we didn't have permission. It paints NVIDIA in a very bad light as the bad guy, even if they really weren't the bad guys somehow. It is basically a conspiracy theory at this point. Like, when you have 3 people accusing you of doing the same thing that are unaffiliated, you kind of have to go, well, yeah, that sounds like NVIDIA was the guilty party, and any argument in the opposite direction stops being reasonable doubt and boils down into a conspiracy theory. Which is exactly what I'm saying is, either NVIDIA actually didn't ask for permission, or 3 other companies conspired to paint a picture of NVIDIA not asking for permission. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Kubel Star, which is like a 3D Tetris or Clax clone almost. Match the colors, brick break. This is different than most Tetris clones out there, but I'm not sure it's any more interesting than games like that. $6.99 is a little too expensive, English and French, and yes, none of these screenshots and images want to load, which might be a continuing problem. Here we have a Magic Arena article. Secret Layer Drop Series Thalia to tie in with MTG Arena. On March 12th, Arena will be updated by updating Historic with 25 new cards. And Secret Lair is going to get some of the action. So the Historic Anthology collection is going to be available for sale. And then the Thalia Beyond the Hell Vault will be available for 24 hours only at secretlair.wizardsofthecoast.com. So that's an actual bundle. These Secret Lair bundles, though, are basically paying $25 for individual cards. In this case, it seems like you're probably going to pay about $25 for 4 cards. Maybe you're going to pay closer to $100 or $60 for 4 cards. This is the new crazy thing that they've started doing, where they're getting extremely close to selling individual cards at the resale value of some of the best cards. Endemic Creations, the creators of Plague Inc., have put out a statement as far as the statement regarding the removal of Plague Inc. from the China App Store and Steam. Let's see. I don't think you're probably going to get any information here, though, because it doesn't seem like there's anything really to take from that otherwise. Like, I don't think they really know. I don't think they're ever going to get a real straight answer. Speaking of conspiracy theories, there is definitely a lack of focus on the Hong Kong protests, which are still going on, and other countries protesting their overlords because of coronavirus. So I wouldn't be surprised if a few political dissidents get accused of having the coronavirus when they really don't, and get thrown in prison like hospitals, quote unquote. So that is something to keep an eye on. Let's see. There was YouTube Gaming 7 hours ago celebrated Clash Royale's 4-year anniversary. Clash Royale, very heavily free to play and pay to win. So, like, I played Clash Royale for like 5 years, and it isn't good enough to really have spent that much time on it, frankly. And it's very weird for YouTube Gaming to be promoting a mobile game that I'm fairly certain nobody streams. Like, when you look at the trending as far as games that are trending on the gaming tab on YouTube, it is all Roblox, it is all some Minecraft people. It's kind of the same people doing the same thing that they were doing 4 or 5 years ago, but Clash Royale barely had a blip in its heyday a couple years ago, and it's just so microtransaction focused, and it got greedier and greedier as the years went by. It was actually very playable as a free-to-play game originally, and eventually it just was like, no, you couldn't possibly maintain a good team without purchasing something. Let's see. Moving on, Gamasutra has this article, Iran Video Games Timeline from 1970 to 2019. Now, is this a list of games developed from people in Iran, or a game of list of games set kind of in the Persian-Iran world? Because honestly, I don't think there was a ton of video games developed by Iranian Persian companies. Also, there's this whole problem of Iran was a very progressive country for a long time, and then all of a sudden it stopped and became a theocracy. Yeah. So once it became that Muslim Islamic theocracy, it pretty much banned a lot of the concepts that would be acceptable in video games, and thus video games would have at best shifted quite a bit, and at worst probably just stopped being allowed completely. So the list here, this might be very educational. We have a 1978 device called the TV Game, which I've never heard of, and then 76 a Video Masters release. Why is it going backwards? And then they're mentioning the Iran Revolution and the Iraq War duration, and then they're kind of just skipping through massive amounts of time. 1988 first video game reviews published in computer magazines. So yeah, a lot of these are just how was the Commodore 64 received in Iran. Yeah, which is kind of a unrealistic comparison, or it's a weird narrative, to say the least. It's like, how is this global product received in this one country so that I have something to say about this product in my article, when almost certainly it had as much effect in Iran as a global product would have as much effect in Iran as it does anywhere else, or similar or massive effect. Right. I'm gonna need to stop babysitting here. So. These two. Bring back these two. I mean, we kind of know where this story is going to go. It's just going to be, oh yeah, they liked video games, and then basically they made no video games, and then the creator of Children of Morta made a video game. And I think that's pretty much where this Iranian article is coming from. Alright, but let's move on. We have Alibaba was released. A game looks like an early 90s PC game. Prince of Persia clone. 1998 Devil's Death was released. This one was promoting an anti-drug message. Interesting. April 2001, Bazi Rayani publishes his first issue. It was a video game magazine. Let's see. And it shut down in 2014. 13 years. Not terrible. 2005, Donya Bazari published his first issue. Another video game magazine. Let's see. Well, does anything have reach here? I don't think anything has reach. Yeah, I'm gonna just attack. We'll see how this works. So we're up to like 2005, and so far this article has mentioned 2 games made by Iranian companies and 2 video game magazines. That's not a lot. I think Iran is a pretty big country too, and somewhat wealthy. It would be interesting to compare just like the population and the, well, I guess population is the important number there. The population of Iran versus the population of Japan, for instance. Because if Japan had only made 2 games, wow. We would be very short on video games. I screwed that up. Alright, well, we'll do this. I think I probably have a victory here. I don't know if I want to play another game after this. I probably need to play one more game. But certainly I am in pain. Sitting in a chair. Sitting in a chair, being unable to even shift in the chair without fear of major back spasms. No way to live your life. The other thing is that the Iranian Revolution, I think, was such an impactful thing for the Iranian people that most of these stories, or half of these stories, are going to be around that. So we have here Quest of Persia, not to be confused with Prince of Persia, The End of Innocence released. It was the first 3D game, and it was released in October 2005. Yeah. So 15 years ago. 2006, Tubian started investing in video games. Did they actually make anything? Let's see, there was a Iran Computer Games Foundation that was stabilized. That's not really anything. They funded some games like Garshasp, the Monster Slayer. 2007 was the first digital media festival launched. 2010, Ozymandias released. 2010, Everything Can Draw was at the Tokyo Game Show. Interesting. 2010, Intigam was released, which this looks like this is a full motion video game. Where this guy seems to be stabbing him or something. Or beating him with a shoe or something, I don't even know. It looks like a triangle object, like he's got a speed square and is beating him with that. Part of the problem here is you really need an Iranian gamer to write an article like this, because only they would know the things that are being snuck around and released under the nose of perhaps the Iranian authoritarian theocracy. At the very least, they would speak the language, and I feel like there is a high chance of mistake to happen to try and write an article, or even try and read an article like this without having that familiarity. Moving on, we have 2010 Garshasp, which looks again like a Prince of Persia game. This is Garshasp, the Monster Slayer that was funded. You know, it seems almost like Iranian people did enjoy Prince of Persia games more than you might think they would. So it's kind of a shame, I guess, for them that instead of making more Prince of Persia games, they went to the Assassin's Creed realm, and they kind of very quickly stopped having any of the Assassin's Creed characters being Middle Eastern in descent after the first game. And Ezio was just such a high success that pretty much the vast majority of all the other characters are European or American, with some small exceptions, Western to say the least. Let's see, 2011 you have Mahdi Bahrami's BO was at the Iranian Game Festival. But this list is getting pretty bad because even in 2011 it seems like they're barely getting one bullet point, one game. 2014, the golden age of mobile games started. So maybe they started making a ton of mobile games, but that's almost an opinion piece at that point. 2011, the first Tehranian Game Festival, Tehran in Iran, generally used interchangeably, I think, at least in my mind. Let's see. 2014, Parvna released. It was the biggest fail ever. Parvna Legacy of the Gardens was a video game that was developed on a budget of $800,000. It broke records as the most expensive Iranian video game of all time, previously held by Garshasp. It was a huge failure and didn't sell at all, and the developer shut down that year. Apparently this is what that game looked like. Donyayi Bazi discontinued after 174 issues, another magazine. Motorari was published as a kind of indie looking game. Clash of Clans was published by Cafe Bazaar, which is to say, not that Clash of Clans was created or developed in Iran, it was just being published by a localization company in 2016. 2017 sees the first Tehran Game Convention. Then it skips all the way down to April 2019, where the IRCG manager announces that they're shutting down the TGF, Tehran Game Festival, TGC, which I guessed is the Tehran Game Convention, Game Incubator, and National Institute. Which, yeah. So, major events, relatively speaking, not really major events worldwide speaking, all shut down after 7 years. So, yeah. There's a lot to be said there, certainly, about how they really haven't gotten into the video game world, and even their attempts at Iran's attempts at making video games. I would have loved to see a Quest of Persia series. That looks like they actually did a decent job there, although that might just be a point-and-click adventure type game. Even for that time, though, that 2005 wouldn't have been too bad. But yeah, they really don't have a lot to offer, and they literally forgot to mention Children of Morta, unless I'm totally confused. Which by far would be the most successful Iron game, unless I'm confused again. Yeah. So yeah, reading an article like that is like reading an article about the number of video games made in like South Africa. There's probably less than 5 of note, less than 5 potentially at all have ever been made in South Africa, and you have to wrap a lot of world influence around it to even have an article. Whereas if you were going to write the exact same article talking about the influence of video games based on Japan or the United States, you would get huge articles. If you did the same article around Germany, London, pretty much any of the European countries, you'd have a decent number of games to list, even if it was something like Portuguese Brazil games where they tend to be pretty bad. You could still list hundreds and hundreds of Portuguese Brazilian style games or developers developed games. So yeah, but the thing I would emphasize is there clearly seems to be at least a percentage of the population of Iran that do want to be involved in video games, in developing them, in playing them, and enjoying them, and that feeling exists, and really is something that we should not discount. In the same way that there are many Chinese people that want to play regular video games and not have to play censored garbage games that are approved by the government. And there are many people well, I guess China is about the worst to censor as far as censored games. There's many people in Australia too that have several of their games are not allowed to be played just because they've been refused classification. The desire worldwide to play video games is going up, it's not going down, regardless of what country you're living in or how that country looks upon video games. Let's see, moving on, we have a Gematsu article. Trackmania Nations remake has been announced for PC. It's due out May 5th. I don't recall a Trackmania game called Nations. And it'll be interesting. It probably is a remake in the sense that the graphics are better, and that's about it. I doubt we'll see a lot of people getting into Trackmania or getting back into Trackmania at this point. Let's see. I've got 12 health, and I lost, pretty much. I don't think there's a way to save me there. Here we have a game on Steam called Legendary Knight, and then a bunch of Asian characters. It looks like it's a player versus player. And then why are they showing a video of you playing as a king if you're supposed to be a Legendary Knight? Yeah, they don't even know their own title. This looks very much like a Chinese game with just way too much text on the screen. Way too many options. Early access, $7.99. Single player only, English and Chinese. Allegedly full audio and all of this. It's a little surprising that it's single player only, because it definitely looks like it's a player versus player game. So you're just gonna run around attacking a whole bunch of bots non-stop for kind of no reason, and they're gonna fight each other for kind of no reason. Right, I don't have enough health to play this. I literally can't do anything. I've lost. So let's cover the news, and then we would only have a few games to mention. TechRaptor has this article. Booker T lawsuit against Activision for Call of Duty's profit moves forward. Apparently Booker T early in his career made a character that I think he even made a comic book based off his character in the WWE, and he feels that EA stole that character. His character was G.I. Bro. And maybe EA did steal it. I mean, I wouldn't put it past EA. So, this lawsuit's going to go forward, and I guess it will be interesting to see what happens there. Gamatsu has an article here. Yomi wo Saku Hana main visuals and 13 minutes of gameplay are available. It's a Xbox One only game, which the idea of a Japanese game being an Xbox One only game is actually extremely shocking. RPG only coming to the Xbox One right now. It's not really showing a lot in these presentations. It looks like it's mostly going to be a dungeon crawler horror experience with some like point and click adventure elements. Here they're using this wrong, by the way. That's not how you use a Blue Yeti microphone. You're supposed to have it straight upward because it has two cardioids in it. Depending on how you set the settings to use the cardioids, affects some things, but not the direction in which it's supposed to be. There was this tweet. Apparently there was a game called Decorum Online, labeled as a free-to-play title, that made you pay, tried to make you pay $20 once you installed it, and was basically doing it through a third-party access website, so they would cut YouTube, Steam out of their percentage. So yeah, some scammers got on Steam. Not a big deal, but also another indicator of just people being at the asleep at the wheel as far as allowing basically anything onto the Steam storefront. Let's see, I've got somebody's Twitter feed up, and I don't think there was a reason for that. And then apparently this person made a Steam curator to tag review bombed games, which I don't think there's really a need for that, frankly, because it doesn't get into the nuance of any of that problem anyways. Let's see, Open Critic has an article here. The Witcher Season 2 on Netflix has found the actor that will play Vesemir. I haven't watched The Witcher yet, so yeah. It'll be killing Eve alum Kim Bodnia, I guess. Whoever that is. That's barely video game related. TechRaptor has an interesting article here. Romance of the Three Kingdoms 14 is going to get an English version. An English version was released. It also features temporary free DLC and a demo. I wouldn't have expected that any game called Romance of the Three Kingdoms would go through the extra effort of making an English version, but I guess perhaps that's an English version more for the other Asian countries instead of perhaps Western countries. TechRaptor has this article: GDC canceled amid coronavirus concerns. Canceled? Yeah, is not the right term. And see, immediately they say canceled here, and that's just bad journalism. So it says right here, conference to be rescheduled for summer and streaming, which is not saying canceled per se. for what little difference that really means, yeah, they have not used the word canceled. It's not canceled until they say the word canceled. As far as I'm concerned, it's been rescheduled. It'll be toned down. It'll have less people showing up. All of those things very believable to speculate upon, but saying that absolutely nothing called GDC will happen in 2020 is going too far. The Mythic Point challenge from Magic the Gathering Arena, I have no idea what that was. I didn't even read the thing, but I believe it happened and ended over the course of like a weekend or something, and I don't think I got any Mythic Points and don't really care enough about that. Alright, so that's going to leave me with about 10 games to cover on Wednesday, and I'll just need to kind of quickly look and see if there's any new thing from the Humble Bundle. Since it is the beginning of a new month, it would be slightly believable that a new Humble Bundle would happen. But by the looks of it, 7 more days, another week potential until another bundle would come at least. That'd be my guess. Unless it's the Best of Polygon Game Dev bundle that's going to be replaced. What is the Best of Polygon Game Dev bundle anyways? Some game called Polygon. Never heard of it. So then that brings me to my Twitter feed, which they've changed how Twitter works. They also updated my cell phone to Android whatever 10, and it changed everything and made it work differently, and I don't appreciate that. It's really messed up running my game on split screen now. My game has to be on the bottom split screen. It can't be on the top split screen, or the graphics don't show, which that certainly is ridiculous. It was working before. Why would it not work now? Let's see. Yeah, scrolling down. Scrolling down. Let's see. We are now in a point where we're trying to figure out if I guess E3 is going to be affected by the coronavirus, and we're just in this weird holding pattern. Individually, people are probably more stuck at home, or should be more stuck at home, so they'll be playing slightly more games. So this would be a great time to catch up, and I imagine people will start catching up on their backlogs more than buying new games off of digital storefronts like Steam, and because there really isn't a lot coming out on Steam. If somebody could rush out a AAA game right now, it would probably sell pretty well, but also maybe not because of financial economic concerns in general. You would feel pretty stupid if you bought a $60 game right now, and then within the next 6 months, the entire world is in like a massive depression and struggling to feed itself. So caution is something to be advised always. Well, yeah, there's barely any new tweets even. Yeah, with coronavirus concerns, I think we're going to see less video game news and less things happening in general. That's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.